can a world record speedrunner with over 10 years of experience beat Castlevania Symphony of the Night without any transformations? That means no Soul of Wolf, Form of Mist, or Soul of Bat allowed. This has literally never been done before, and when I started this challenge, I had no clue if this was even going to be possible. And if it was possible, as a speedrunner, I wanted to see how fast I could complete this challenge, beating the game with no transformations. But before we get into the run itself, we first need to talk about parallel universes. I'm sorry, I mean alternate game versions. See, Castlevania Symphony of the Night has been re-released many times. And each re-release has subtle changes that lead to major differences in challenge runs like this. It would genuinely take me hours to explain every single difference between the dozens of re-releases for this game. And maybe someday I'll make a dedicated video to that very topic. Maybe if we get, I don't know, 50,000 subscribers? Regardless, what's important to know here is that I needed to pick which version to play on very carefully, or else this run would not be possible. But one thing every re-release has in common is how you're expected to beat the game. Normally in Symphony of the Night, in order to beat the game, all you need to do is get to the inverted castle and beat the final boss Dracula. Seems easy enough. However, there are a few obstacles blocking me that I will need to overcome. Access to the inverted castle is locked behind a few key progression items, mainly the Holy Glasses, which normally allows the player to free Richter from being controlled by the Dark Priest shaft, and more importantly, I'll need to find some way to gain enough height to reach the top floor of the castle. This is normally achieved by using the Soul of Bat to fly up to this encounter, but obviously, for this challenge, we can't use any transformations, so I'll need to find another way. In fact, all of the tech I've used in previous challenges to gain extra height all require at least one transformation. Things like Wolf Rising or Fire Boomerang jumps are completely out of the question. And the only way to gain major height outside of transformations is with the Gravity Boots relic, but those are locked behind a large vertical shaft that you normally need Bat to fly up. And this problem with gaining height is the reason I decided to do this challenge playing through the North American release of Dracula X Chronicles for the PSP. See, back in 2007, Konami released a remake of Castlevania Rondo of Blood for the PSP, and called it Dracula X Chronicles. And within the game, you can unlock retro titles that can be played from the main menu, one of which is a re-release of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This version of SotN, however, has a lot of very strange changes from the original PlayStation release. Things like new graphics, new sound effects, and a completely redone voiceover, removing iconic lines like,
"What is a man?" Ha! Mankind. A cesspit of hatred and lies. Fight for them and die for their sins.
But between the two games, it wasn't only aesthetic changes made. There are some major game-breaking glitches that I will have to use to make sure that this run is even possible in the first place. Well, to get started, the beginning of the run is pretty standard as far as speedrunning SotN goes.
Die, monster!
What?
I use Hydro Storm to defeat Dracula quickly, hoping to get past the raging bees he summons in Phase 2. After the prologue, I make my way to the castle entrance and meet with Death. And surprisingly, it looks like he's taking the day off. This is actually one of those version-exclusive glitches I was talking about. For some reason, if you enter the room where Death normally takes away all of your powerful starting gear and then immediately exit the room, the game just assumes you've already talked with Death and removes him from the game, allowing you to move through without getting your items stolen. This is super convenient for us because starting in luck mode and doing a big toss death skip would make the rest of the run very slow because of the worst starting stats. So this is a very convenient and fast alternative. After this, I make my way through the alchemy lab, make swift work of Slogger and Gaibon, and then save the game. This is very important, so write this down. I then make my way out of the alchemy lab and open the menu. And here you may notice a few extra options that were not in the original version of the game. The most important one to note is the new quick save option. Since this game was made for the PSP, the developers added a way to quickly save the game at any time since it's expected that you'd be playing this game on the go. And this quick save option doesn't appear until you've at least saved the game once. And funny enough, this quick save option completely breaks the game wide open. Here I quick save the game, quit to the main menu, and then I rename my save file. And then I copy it to a different open save slot. This lets me load the copy I just made, which has some very interesting side effects. I then walk back towards the alchemy lab after loading that new save, and it fails to load the next area, and instead puts me in the center of the room underneath the floor. From here, I do another quick save and then immediately load that save. And well, this happens. This is called a quick save warp, and it puts me right next to the gravity boots, allowing us to gain the height we need without any transformations. And funny enough, quick save warps can be done anytime you exit a CD room into a new area, and it's super lucky that this warp sends me right where I need to go. Otherwise, this challenge would not be possible, because these quick save warps can send you to completely arbitrary parts of the map, or even lock you out of bounds forever. Now that we have the gravity boots, we can do large vertical jumps off the ground, but if we want to chain multiple jumps together, we're going to need to get the leapstone relic here in the castle keep, right below the spot where Richter guards the entrance to the inverted castle. On our way there, however, we use our newly acquired gravity boots to enter the Allrox's quarters and then enter the Colosseum. We make a quick pit stop here for the shield rod weapon, which, when equipped in combination with the shield and the player presses both the attack buttons at the same time, will cause various magical effects to happen. Things like the infamous Alucard shield and shield rod combo are useful for combat, but the spells themselves are also going to be useful for something else coming up. So after getting the shield rod, I then make my way to this switch, which opens up the path to the Royal Chapel, making sure to grab the Knight Shield along the way. I then proceed to do yet another quick save warp. This time it sends me all the way to the room where you normally fight Hippogriff, but for some reason the boss doesn't spawn, allowing me to skip a huge section of the castle and a boss fight. That is some massive time save right there. And then I make my way to the castle keep, and here if I tried to do another quick save warp, I would get stuck out of bounds right next to the relic that I need, the Leapstone. So instead, I go the long way around and get the relic. The Leapstone now allows me to do a double jump, and after performing a double jump, I can then chain gravity jumps over and over again to fly around the castle. I then make my way to the top of the castle, and since I don't have the holy glasses, I won't be able to save Richter and progress to the inverted castle. But thankfully for the sake of this challenge, I can take advantage of yet another PSP exclusive glitch to skip past Richter. This might get a little complicated, so try and stay with me. First off, it's important to know that there are many ways to skip past Richter and enter the inverted castle without needing the holy glasses. But pretty much all of those methods have one thing in common. The game has these boxes designed to check to see if you've saved Richter yet. If not, the game will load in the boss fight with Richter at the end of the hallway. However, if you somehow manage to enter the room without touching any of these boxes here, the game stays in its default state, which luckily for us, happens to be the cutscene where Richter has just been freed from Shaft's control, which ends in Alucard walking to the left and warping to the inverted castle. But the issue is that almost every method of skipping past these detection boxes requires a transformation, either by jumping between a small gap in this box in the ceiling while in wolf form, or by entering the room from above and performing a frame-perfect bat transformation to enter the room without an active hitbox. However, I could actually do this version of the bat skip without transforming if I was able to freeze the screen a few times. See, during screen freezes, things like a level up or using the heart refresh item, the game continues to calculate Alucard's position every single frame, but won't update the camera position, meaning we can move Alucard while keeping the camera locked in place. This means if we could freeze the screen a few times, we could actually move Alucard underneath the screen transition and move him past the detection box entirely. The only issue is, the normal way to freeze the screen multiple times is to use multiple heart refreshes, and since this is a speedrun, it would take far too long to collect the heart refreshes needed to do this skip. But this is where the janky nature of the PSP version comes into play. Remember that shield rod we got earlier? Well, the activation of the shield rod spell does actually freeze the screen, similar to a heart refresh would. But in the original version of SotN, there's no way to chain multiple screen freezes using only the shield rod. This is because, during the screen freeze itself, the game considers both attack buttons being held down, and you can't activate the shield rod spell while both buttons are being held. You have to at least release them for one frame before pressing them again. But funny enough, when the developers ported this game over to the PSP, they had to create a new way for the game to register inputs. Compared to the original PlayStation release, the PSP console is missing the L2 and R2 shoulder buttons. Normally, the L2 button was used for quickly navigating menus, so that was easy enough to just discard, but the R2 button was used to transform Alucard into a wolf after acquiring the Soul of Wolf relic. And since there are no other available buttons to attach these transformations to, the developers instead made a new input reading system that would move the wolf transformation to the L button, and the mist transformation that was previously activated by pressing L1 is now activated by pressing both L and R together. And in order to make sure people could activate the mist without needing frame-perfect button timing, they created an input buffer to store inputs for a few frames whenever L or R is being held. So that way the system can wait to see if the other button is being pressed and then tell the game to transform Alucard into Mist instead of Wolf or Bat. However, an interesting side effect of this transformation buffer is that it doesn't just store the L and R inputs. It stores all inputs and would count as pressing that input every single frame for up to 10 frames. Meaning, I could hold the L or R buttons and then perform the shield rod input, hold those buttons down, and that would cause the spell to automatically buffer and be performed back to back with no gaps. Side note, when I originally was routing this part of the run, I was going out of my way to grab the leather shield, since the shield spell costs only 10 MP per cast, allowing me to do the 5 spells needed to skip past the detection box and enter the inverted castle, but as it turns out, the knight shield also costs 10 MP and costs no extra time to pick up. That's a lot of information, so let's do a quick recap. I grabbed the shield rod and the knight shield so I can use the shield rod spell to freeze the screen. And in this version of the game, if I hold the L or R buttons and then hold down both attack buttons, it'll cause the shield spell to get activated over and over again without any gaps. I use this while falling through the screen transition to allow Alucard to move past the detection box to enter this room undetected, allowing me to skip past the fight with Richter and go immediately to the inverted castle. Here, the normal way the game expects you to progress is to find the 5 main bosses of the inverted castle, defeat them, and collect the 5 pieces of Vlad, which when collected opens up the secret clock room that leads to Shaft and finally Dracula himself. But of course, after seeing all the crazy shit I've done so far, do you really think I'm going to go through all that trouble? Instead, I make my way to the inverted chapel, use the Alucard shield combo to melt Medusa, and enter inverted Alrox's quarters. Here I make my way to the save room and perform a glitch called a save room shift line. A shift line refers to opening up a hole at the edge of the screen for Alucard to fall through, and by walking off center and pressing up to save the game, then canceling the save game prompt over and over again, it for some reason causes the edge of the screen to get pushed farther and farther back, until finally I can fall through the ceiling here into the room below. This is yet again a glitch that only exists in the PSP version of the game, and thankfully for me, since I enter this room in a weird way, the game never loads the hitboxes for these spikes, so I could just sail through without taking any damage. Otherwise, I would have to very slowly move through this area to clear these spikes. And then, I finally make my way to the central clock room, right next to the end of the game. However, the room leading to the final boss is still locked behind needing those 5 pieces of Vlad, so I decide to make my own way there instead. Similarly to how save rooms can open up shift lines, I can actually open up a shift line for myself by desyncing Alucard's horizontal position from the center of the screen. And if you recall from earlier, freezing the screen with the shield rod can cause Alucard to move while the camera remains frozen. So I set up a precise position and then dive kick to get some horizontal momentum. I then buffer 3 shield spells to open up the shift line at the edge of the screen. I then slide off the edge and do a gravity jump up into the ceiling, which tries to load me into the save room right above me. However, I'm stuck out of bounds on the edge between the 2 rooms. But if I spam the jump button over and over again, I will eventually be able to jump through the floor into the save room past the barrier blocking me from the end of the game. And now, there's nothing standing between me and the end of the game except these final 2 bosses. Shaft is normally a very difficult fight as he spams the screen with balls here, and so oh, yeah, Alucard shield. And Dracula, oh, yeah, that's pretty anticlimactic. But regardless, that's how I became the first person to ever beat Castlevania Symphony of the Night without any transformations. And not only that, I sped through the game skipping all but 5 bosses, ending Dracula's reign of terror in just about 14 minutes. All thanks to the weird, wild, and completely janky Dracula X version of Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. It really does help me out a lot. And if you want to see me do silly challenges like this live, you should probably follow my live stream over at twitch.tv/dragonblitz. I would love to see you in the chat sometime. And of course, I couldn't make videos like this if it wasn't for the support of my Patreon members. Patreon supporters get access to all my videos early, without ads, as well as a special role on my Discord server, where you get access to extra bonus videos and live streams. And I want to give a special thanks to all my high-tier Patreon members, including Microb, Grave Cactus, Rhinesguard 1, Nanoseed Production Company, C, Indy, Barnabas D. Gray, Toby Bear, Crazy Four Blades, Lieutenant CYX, Minus X, Soma Jean, TJ Foster, Atomic Dracula, Suchioto, Kenneth, Chaosvania, Jokum Palm, and WJB.